The Platonic Way versus and beyond barbarism. What is barbarism? What is the Platonic response to barbarism? Let us begin from a notion, a Platonic notion of anamnesis, recollection, returning to see things that have been lost. Now, with Plato, we have the notion that all knowledge is recollection. Somehow, we have lost something and we seek to recover that which we have lost throughout our daily experience. Now, we seek to recover it more properly with knowledge, the quest for knowledge, but we seek to recover it as well in some way in our ordinary feelings, our sentiment. What are feelings? Feelings are a sense, an awareness, a consciousness that something has been lost. We do not know what has been lost in feeling something, but we do sense that something has been lost. So ultimately, all feeling involves sadness. Even the feeling of joy. It involves an underlying sadness in the face of the realization, a sense that something has been lost. Sense here in feelings, in sentiment, is alive. There is an awareness of a loss, of a movement, a disappearing, a dying. Feeling is necessarily tied to death, or rather, more precisely, to dying, the dying of things. This is a classical theme. It is something that pertains to, well, human experience in general, obviously. Now, feeling, sentiment, tells us that we have lost something. It does not tell us what we have lost. As we turn back to ask, to question the feeling, and to ask what its ground, what its reason might be, we seek knowledge of what has been lost. We seek a sense of the something that has been lost. It's not enough now to sense that something has been lost in this sentiment of loss, this memento mori also, yes, this memory, as it were, of the dying process. We seek to know what we have lost. As we reflectively rise to knowledge of what has been lost, we have, as it were, a new dimension of life. We rise above what has been called the barbarism of sense, but also sense proper. Sense is not barbaric. Let us see why knowledge is important. Because if we leave it at sense, virtually immediately we begin feeding into barbarism. Why is that? Because I have my sense of the loss, that something has been lost. If I do not seek what has been lost, I will pretty much inevitably begin to find myself in opposition to, in conflict with others. So we end up assuming, for instance, that what is lost is mine, right? It's particular, it's physical. It's something that I can sense in a physical manner. We grab onto the feeling, we grab onto the tangible, and we open up the doors to barbarism. If we do not seek knowledge, we become barbaric. The quest for knowledge is thus a response not only to sense proper, to feelings proper, but also to barbarism. However, the quest for knowledge, as such, fails to provide an adequate, durable, sustainable answer to barbarism. It fails to overcome barbarism in any respect, really, as long as it remains this quest for knowledge. Let us be clear about this. Knowledge here is a sense of what has been lost. However, knowledge as such is a sense that pertains to a what devoid of that sentiment that had first moved us to seek knowledge. In traditional scholastic terms, we could say that feelings are about the particular, knowledge is about the universal. The two, in fact, are one and the same thing. It's just that in one case, you have the sense of this motion of being lost. Something is being lost, or rather, there is this loss, this losing, this dying. Hence, the bitterness of all feeling, the sadness. An awareness of the losing, the disappearing of things. This is what feeling is at its core. And of course, in the modern world, we try to turn this upside down and say that, you know what, we can construct a new feeling of glee, of merriment, and everybody can be joyful, and in this brave new world of ours where everyone is kind and empathetic, because it's, why should we be? Because then things work. So instrumentalist, consequentialist attitudes creep in, and all within the machine. But let us leave this horrible business aside and return to the nature of feelings. And feeling is sadness. And so knowledge tries to overcome this sadness, but it ends up with a what devoid of this feeling. People of science, of knowledge, speak as if what they were saying were not affected by death. They live in a world of words, of abstractions, one might say, of forms that are clear and distinct, but devoid, precisely because of this, one might say, devoid of life, devoid of dying. What is the what that we have lost? What is it that we have lost? Well, man of knowledge, of science, scientia, meaning knowledge, will tell you what. But this what he will tell you, and it's dead. It's just a name, ultimately. The man of feeling will not tell you what you have lost, but he will give you something alive, at least. Now, if you cut off knowledge from the problem of the senses, you end up with a new kind of barbarism, which has in the past been referred to as the barbarism of reflection. We could say the barbarism of knowledge, of science, really. The barbarism of senses, or of feelings, is one that takes the feelings as an end in themselves. The barbarism of knowledge takes knowledge as an end in itself. In one case, we have a movement which becomes violent, barbaric, thus violent. Movement of death, conflict, strife ensues. In the other case, we have a barbarism of knowledge, which is knowledge taken as an end in itself, as a what that is devoid of life. One might say, well, it's devoid of death, but it's really alive. And yet, it has no existence. It is abiding in a world as if in a bubble, in nowhere. It's just words, right? We have a nominalistic universe here. Words that are without certainty, the certainty given by our feelings, our bodily senses. So, in one case, we have the true without the certain. In another case, we have the certain without the true. Barbaric, both of them. Which is worse? As the classics, the whole Platonic tradition tells us, reminds us, the barbarism of science is the worst. Now, we've experienced this. Our stories of the past confirm this one way or another. Now, is there a way out? And of course, our classical tradition, our classical Platonic tradition, helps us see, recognize, rise to a way out. And this way out is sometimes referred to as the life of understanding. Understanding is beyond mere knowledge, obviously. To understand is to have the what and the that together. Just as you rise reflectively to ask about the what, so must there be another movement of sorts that returns to senses and discovers knowledge within the dying, within death. And this is the highest moment of life for us human beings. This ascent to, or return of knowledge to the world of the senses, of common sense, of the imagination, of feeling. To discover knowledge that is not outside of feeling, but that is at the heart of it, a living knowledge. And so we have a life of the understanding that involves this double turn, right? The first, from mere feelings to the what that has been lost. The what, however, is known in names, in language, in speech, in nominal terms, in words. Back to the living word, which is alive at the heart of our daily experience. This, and only this, is the classical Platonic response to barbarism. Again, both types of barbarism. It is a response to the temptation to accept the sensory experience as its own answer. It is also, and most importantly, a response to the temptation of conceiving the world of words, of names, of data, of true forms, true, clear and distinct ideas, as an answer to the world of the senses, something that can then be applied to keep all the senses in check. Classical barbarism is, for the most part, the barbarism of the senses. Modern barbarism is, for the most part, the barbarism of reflection, of names, of science that is imposed upon our feelings. Classical Platonism responds to both these forms of barbarism and transcends them, evidently, in a life of understanding. The Platonic poet, the Platonic philosopher, does not carry weapons. He is unarmed, much as the Jesus of the Gospels is unarmed. But he is the weapon. He is his own weapon. His weapon is his spear, right? As in Shakespeare, is his pen. He writes, but he writes not to impose his own formulas upon the world, but to help expose formulas, all formulas, at their origin, in their womb, in everyday life, to show that what philosophy is all about, what discourse, honest discourse, talk, is all about, is exposing truth at the heart of our daily life, our daily experience of things. What it offers us is what is true in the act of dying. What it offers us is life hidden, and at the same time manifesting itself, hidden in death, manifesting itself as we die.